So I'm just going to do a short discussion about the election results and why we think it's kind of a wake-up call for the Martinez City Council. Brianne hit some of these points, and so I may be a little repetitive on some of them. But we want to encourage people to run for council. Some of the hurdles that Brianne faced are ones that Thousand Friends is familiar with: how to do campaign reporting, where to find money, how to do the endorsement process, etc. And so we can help candidates who are interested in running for council. You get into politics because you want to lead or you want to make change. And that's also why Thousand Friends was formed, because we're not satisfied with the way politics is happening in Martinez. Now, Martinez is a small city, and most of us know a city council member. But if you walk precincts and you talk to people, what you find is that the city council is not well regarded by Martinez residents. And the reason for that is because they don't have much threat of not being reelected, and they do too many controversial things, whether it's Pine Meadows or going along with developers suing citizens, or finances, or not supporting some of the things that all of the rest of us support. The city council is not very well liked, but we're a small city, and that gives us some advantages. So we created Thousand Friends to elect better candidates, and as I said, based on three legs of a stool: conservation, parks and open space, good government, transparency, and overall quality of life issues. We've been doing endorsements now for 3 election cycles, and in that time, we've looked for good candidates. We don't always have them, and we don't endorse candidates who we don't think are good, but all of our endorsed candidates have won. So in this November, Brianne won in the City Council District 3. Jonathan Wright, and Horak Martin, and Jeremy Janelli all won on the school board. And we also endorsed Federal Glover in the County Board of Supervisors. That primary was in March, and then the general was in November. Now, Martinez incumbents rarely lose, and why is that? It's generally because they have name recognition, and it takes time and money to develop name recognition. If they have name recognition, they probably have contacts, and if you're a city council member, you get contacts. That helps with campaign contributions and endorsements and all kinds of other things. And so they have advantages that newcomers or challengers don't generally have. So again, Martinez incumbents rarely lose. What are the equalizers? Well, they're the grassroots. When you have people like Tim Platt or Mark Thompson who can help you with a campaign, or who can walk precincts for you, who have their own contacts they can bring to the game, that can be an important equalizer. Social media is much cheaper than printing things and sending them in the mail, so that can be an equalizer. If you're already well known, that can be an equalizer. If you have money, generally, if you can afford a campaign consultant, you can skip the step of developing name recognition over a long period of time. And so sometimes stakeholders will run somebody who isn't well known, but they use money and a campaign consultant to overcome those hurdles. So in 2016, 4 years ago, Nora Lee Gipner, and I'll say that we endorsed her at the time. She was a challenger. She was well known in the city, and we hoped she would help bring change. That wasn't the case. She voted in lockstep with the city council almost 100%. She didn't lead on issues that we thought were important. But in 2016, Nora Lee and Mark Ross, they beat their closest city council challengers by more than 2,000 votes. And if you look at this, if you look at these figures here of how much they spent and how many votes they got, you'll see that Mark Ross, who had lots and lots of name recognition, got reelected with a very small amount of money, and Mark's famous for saving his signs and et cetera, et cetera. And I'll say that in this election, Mark was reelected, but we didn't endorse him. So we think he could do better. Nora Lee, on the other hand, was very well known. and she raised a lot of money, and that allowed her to overcome the normal situation of name recognition, and she won by almost the same amount of votes. Their closest challengers, Courtney Marcella O'Brien and John Stevens, were 2,000 or more votes lower for a low dollar campaign, for a high dollar campaign. And the point here is that there was an opening on the city council, and Nora Lee spent a lot of money and was elected. We actually thought Brianne was a long shot in getting elected this time because Nora Lee is popular. It's almost impossible if you don't get a link to find campaign contributions on the city website. And having transparency in campaign contributions and knowing who's spending money or who's supporting candidates is really powerful in terms of transparency and good government. So this November, Brianne won by 151 votes in District 3. We didn't endorse in District 2, and a relatively unknown person, Daniel Leahy, challenged Mark Ross and almost won. Mark Ross, who's been a top vote getter some elections, only retained his seat by 114 votes. What changed? What's the difference between 2016, when Nora Lee and Mark Ross both won by more than 2,000 votes over their nearest challengers? District elections. In February 2018, the city and the school board were forced, over their objections, to institute district elections. It comes from California voting rights legislation, which basically wants to keep various kinds of communities from being disenfranchised. Cities weren't following the rules, and a Southern California lawyer started suing to force them to follow the rules. And suddenly a lot of cities, school boards, and other special districts were having to run in district elections in order to get better representation. There wasn't a lot of guidance on how they needed to do it. And you can see that on the left, the city council did it in a really self-interested, gerrymandered way because 3 city council members live downtown. They didn't want to have to run against each other. And so they made what California Common Cause called the worst district map in the entire state of California, and in order to preserve their seats. And so the biggest hurdle after district elections were started was most people don't know what district they're in or who their council member is. And on the other hand, at the school board, they made relatively cohesive districts that kept neighborhoods together, and we think they did a fairly good job about that. Thousand Friends and others have put before the city council a proposal, an ordinance to create an independent redistricting commission in order to create better districts with the coming results from the federal census. Political boundaries will all have to be redistricted for congressional and other seats anyway. And so when that happens, Martinez should use an independent redistricting commission to make better boundaries. And Brianne is already committed to helping with that process. So as Brianne said, despite gerrymandered districts, instead of competing for 22,000 voters throughout the city before district elections, council candidates, and there are 4 council seats and 1 mayor's seat at large, they compete for 5,000 to 6,000 votes. Campaign costs are a lot lower as a result. You don't have to mail to the entire city to try and get elected, and you can actually walk more easily and reach people much more simply. Where do candidates come from? And this is part of the continuing problem with Martinez is in most places, candidates are known quantities who tend to run because they were on the planning commission or they were on the school board, and they're going to run for the next elected office, whether it's city council or assembly or board of supervisors. But in Martinez, the mayor appoints almost all of the commissioners, and so most of the candidates are beholden to him in some way. Because of the problems with incumbency, because of the costs of running a campaign, because most of the candidates come from people that have been appointed by the mayor, it discourages people from running. Then when you face the idea of where does the money come from to run, people either get money from their friends and family, which can only take you so far, or they get them from 3 or 4 major sources: union locals, developers, um, garbage companies, or other kinds of special interests, including Thousand Friends. The difference is that we don't have a profit motive in trying to get people elected. We're just trying to get people elected who will be better leaders. So the bottom line and the conclusion is, with district elections, even gerrymandered ones, with the example of people like Brianne winning with 150 votes, spending less than $8,000, Mark Ross being vulnerable, winning only by 120 votes or so, we're going to see more candidates running. We're here to help them and to facilitate those efforts, to provide funding in some cases, and and to help with the redistricting process. The the elephant in the room is that the mayor's seat still runs at large, so it's still a hurdle to raise the funds to run with 22 or 25,000 voters across the entire city. We actually think that the mayor's seat should be like the council seats, one of the districts instead of at large, and we're considering how to address that. But we encourage candidates to step up and run. And thank you for coming to our meeting this evening.